Alrighty, good evening, YouTube. Hajim Zero here, back, doing the Ip Man movie reviews. This one was really a treat. Between the first one and third one, I just watched this one, but it was some really, really good stuff in this, and of course, watching all the behind the scenes, commentary. Uh, First, starting off with the story continues in 1959 from the last Ip Man movie where he moved to Hong Kong with his wife. After they were forced to flee in their original province, wherever it was, I forget the village or the name. But one of the main key things how I remembered, because his wife, the real Ip Man's wife, had passed away from cancer in 1960. I'm assuming with this film, it all takes place in like 1 year, um, despite of the giant time lapse that the first movie did, and also with the second one. But the character of character slash real person of Bruce Lee, um, an older one at that time, makes his additional snippet cameo in this. In the second one, to tease it at the end when he was a kid coming up to Ip, asking him, to train him and all that. But I really like the story on this. I really like it when, despite it's a martial arts film, and I got a little bit more respect for Donnie Yen, even though when Ip Man first came out, I didn't have much of a, I didn't jump on that bandwagon because a lot of my friends and everything, they were ride, not to say D-ride, but, you know, uh, everyone was on a Donnie Yen craze, and I'm the type of guy that really loves the underdog. You know, a lot of, and there's nothing against Donnie Yen, because he is a good martial artist, and to be honest, I was kind of a fan, indirectly a fan of his before everyone hopped on that bandwagon. Of course, with Iron Monkey, but uh, what was I about to say? It was the fact that I love when, martial artists or actors in general, you see more of a mix of their other skills as a dramatic actor. And in this one, that was one of the themes. And even with the character that what's the guy's name? It's probably on this screen. I think his name is Max Zen, but you can see him. He's all the way to the right. Even this guy did a good job, even though you know, I don't think he has that many credits, but I'm gonna get to him in a minute. But going back with the whole aesthetic of, you know, action movie stars, they do dramatic roles. Jackie Chan and Jet Li comes to mind. I was more of a Jet Li fan than I was Jackie, because I noticed what they said about Jet behind the scenes. He's really good with weapons, and he did a few dramatic esque roles with the martial arts. I think before Jackie and Donnie did. Even though they both, all three guys had worked together. I don't think Donnie and Jackie worked together yet. But I really have a lot more credit because in the past movies, really, there's pretty much three like layering, arcs that go on in this story. Even though one of them was like left up in the open and just ended really quick. The first one's really with Ip Man's, private life with his family, um, and his two sons. I think in the story's timeline, I don't know if the movie or realistically, one of the sons went back to the original province where they originally lived. The youngest one had stayed in Hong Kong, and his wife is scolding him about not being around as much. He's always helping people. He was providing security for the school that the son was going to because Frank, which is Mike Tyson's character, who's working with the triads, buying up the real estate, was going around punking him and trying to buy it up. And, Ip and a few other locals are trying to protect it. Um, which Max Zen's character, who is the guy again on the left, no, the right, my bad. Um, he's like Yip Man. He has a family as well. He has a son and wants to open a martial arts school, but his relationship that he treats his sons a little bit different. He's treating them more like his disciple and pupil. And it's very weird with the relationship between the two, because it seems like he's an antagonist, but he really isn't. It's with the actor said behind the scenes is like a friends and enemy kind of relationship, because they both practice, the same art, except uh the what I see his name now is Jin Zhang, but is Max Jin Zhang plays Master Ten Chi. His style is more aggressive with the Wing Chun, and if you watch it, you can definitely tell versus how more organic and fluid Donnie Yen's is. And they usually say that, with martial arts, you can teach the basic forms, but after a while, you'll formulate your own style. And when I talk about the Matrix, I remember Master Yu Wing Pen was saying that about all four of the major characters in the movie. And another good known fact is that he did the fight choreography for this one, and I think Donnie Yen pitched in a little bit as well. But that's pretty much what the first, transitional story. It really wasn't as, that the stakes really weren't that high in this movie or that dramatic like with the last two, because it had more weight, with what the subject matter was. Um, but the of course the second of the piece is the triads and the British being there. Like with the second movie, how the corruption is there, but it was with the Americans allegedly as well, buying up the real estate. And of course, one of the best fight scenes in the movies, that leads up to that is between, Donnie Yen and Mike Tyson. And the dope thing is that with Mike, even though he's a heavyweight boxer, that's pretty much his advantage. It is his weight. He was taking some of those blows, from, it. And it was just dope to see the Western, and the East, with the Wing Chun and the American boxing. And even though we saw it in the last film with the character of Twister, but the difference was that Twister and, Donnie Yen's character were pretty much the same weight. I'm assuming, I know that guy really isn't a fighter, but looking at his weight, I say he's like a middleweight class, and of course Mike is like heavyweight. How much, yeah, he weighs. And in the second fight, of course, that was I really liked is the one that's screenshot on the screen. It was three transitions with that fight. First is with the staffs that you see, then it was with the butterfly knife blades, and then it was with the two characters with the going hand to hand combat. What I like about all of the Ip Man films, it was more realistic with the martial arts at moments. It wasn't massive flying in the air. You could say the exceptional with the tabletop fight in the second movie. But even though I believe that one's realistic, they didn't go massive flying everywhere. But more the fights in this one were well choreographed, and I believe the first one was as well. But I'm trying to think of the third transition. Oh, and I think the third I was thinking of in this movie was I think I said the family part already, his wife dying and all that. I know that there was a third one. I can't think of it right now. Hopefully it comes back to me before the video ends. But a lot of stuff behind the scenes of this movie was really well. Mike had talked about in interviews how, how Yu Ping had instructed him on, the fight choreography. And this is the excellence between Yu Ping and Donnie Yen, because Donnie Yen said he was a fan of Mike, and he studied, his fights, the way he swings, his jabs, his footwork. And but something is telling me I think Mike had a little bit of an input on some of the stuff that he was involved with. And the funny thing, I wish there was another fight scene or more of him in the film, but he had a limited schedule, so he wasn't really there. A lot of the Chinese actors and actresses were, they said a few of them were disappointed they didn't get to have a scene with him. I think another actor other than Donnie Yen, who they interviewed, I think he was a triad leader. He talked about having a scene with him, but it was no fighting involved. It was more dialogue. I know that there's another thematic element to this, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this film. I really love the historical context, despite how some things may be over exaggerated, especially with Mike Tyson being in it, how modern he looks versus, it not being a 1950s Hong Kong. But if his character was fictional, I guess you can get away with it. And another funny fun fact: the character that I talked about, the one that's to the left on the, I keep saying to the left, to the right of the screen, that the mass attention, he's actually based off of a real guy too. They had changed the name though. I had looked it up. He's half Peruvian and half Chinese, and he recently passed away. I think no, not even recent, but in 2002. But again, if you go on the Wikipedia site, they have all the information, you know. And it was a lot, off the top of my head. I really can't remember, not with just this movie, but throughout all of China's all the movies that they have done, based on the more famous ones, especially the ones Jet Li has been involved with, and I'm going to talk about them as well. But it's a whole generation, like, lineage of, like, iconic, so-called, you could say, legends or heroes in China's own right. And one of the last facts is that I found out that I'm assuming that Bruce really didn't become much of a master of Wing Chun. Uh, but he was trained, and they said behind the scenes, because I think Wilson Yip, who was the director, was connected, and of course, one of the other sons had trained Donnie for the first one to get those Wing Chun movements, with especially with the arm ballet, as I like to call it. But he stated that, or someone did, that he didn't train with Bruce that long. I don't want to throw out a number, but I think he trained with him long enough to get the basics of, close quarters combat. And then later, when Bruce got on his own, he trained in other forms. So, you know, if any of you Bruce Lee or martial arts nerds, like the super big ones, are out there, want to correct me, it's all open in the comments. Because I would say, like, I'm like a beginner, like level 2, knowing all this. I may know all the names and the stuff, but I don't know the whole full detail, of the martial art aesthetic. I don't train like that. I mean, I know a few moves, if I want to get out of a tussle, but I'm not like hardcore. Um, man, I'm really pondering on that third talking point I wanted to get at, transition with the movie. I probably already said it and just didn't realize it. But it's probably gonna remember the shit when I turn the video off, of course. But yeah, it's pretty much all I have to say. You know, trying to think of some other pondering facts I wanted to say about this movie. Nah, well, nah, no. Pretty much on the side that they hired some of the same actors to come back if they were in certain roles. I know the police chief was back in this one. That was nice to see, but I really missed the character of Zhang, who knew the Northern Shaolin Fist. They really didn't explain what happened to him. But other than that, that's my review. Sayonara.